bring on my special guest. I'm very excited to have him here. Writer, director, producer, Donick Cary. Hello.
Hey, how are you? I was actually just testing the camera, but I'm here. It's good.
You are? Okay, cool. If you're okay to get started.
Yeah, we might as well rock it out.
Now, then I'm okay to go ahead and go. Right on. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Memorial Day weekend, relaxing in our forced lockdown. We're all good.
I mean, good. I am like you, as I have never met you before this second, but I suspect you're kind of geeky like I am. You can sit and enjoy being in your house and watch any number of things for hours on end and be like, this is great.
It's interesting. It's like I'm very distracted by stuff in my house and stuff in the outside world. So having half of that shut down is actually helps you focus on all the stuff that you have to do in your house, including 10 million shows, as you just said. Yeah, there's so much it's overwhelming.
Anybody who ever says, I'm so bored, how? Look, imagine if this had happened 20 years ago, then I would have accepted I'm kind of bored as an answer. But now we're like, there's, I can't, as it is, normally I never run out of stuff to watch. And I'm usually like sad that I'll never have time to watch everything that I want to watch or read or do or learn. But anyway, Donick, I'm the guy who hasn't done shit compared to you. You have had an incredible career. First off, I did not even know. All I know is I saw your documentary and I went, I love this so much.
Love that. Love that that's one of the things you watched during your downtime.
I was very excited to watch it. I saw that it was coming out and I looked at the trailer and went, this looks like my kind of thing. That documentary, of course, is Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, which is, I keep saying you should have called it So You've Decided to Take Psychedelic Drugs.
There was one point when we were editing, we started by getting all this footage of celebrities just sharing trips and adventures and revelations and cautionary tales and just a little bit of everything, and we're trying to figure out like what exactly is the through line, what exactly is the meat of this thing, and what's our theme and everything. And at one point we were like, I think we've kind of made like a user's guide inadvertently with real people sharing real stories. They've shared everything you need to know, whether it's for you or not. It may not be for you. We're not saying you should do it. We're just telling you, like, if you do, if you don't, here's some things that happen, like real experiences. So
I felt like it was something like I wish I had when I was like 20 years old, which for me made me like the old man of psychedelic drugs at that point. Cause like 16, 17, 18-year-olds were going, hey man, we got some acid and I'm really scared. Do you have any advice? I'm like, how do you know to ask me? But I do, actually. Give me just a second. I'll let you know. I felt like I wish I could have just pointed them at this and gone, this is great. This is literally like, hey, we're not saying, it's not trying to convince you to do it. It's saying, here's all the stuff you should know if you are there and think like right on the line of deciding to, once you're onto, I've never seen a documentary before that explored concepts as simple as seemingly simple, but like a real question. Should you look into a mirror or not?
Right, exactly.
That's a valid question.
Yes. I mean, that's the fun. That's what attracted me to doing this, was that psychedelics are two things. They can be lead you to very profound things, and they can lead you to very silly things. And that mix, which is almost the glue or content of any great character, Homer Simpson is often profound and also very silly. That these two things, when they exist together, are kind of everything, and lead to some of the funniest stuff, but also some of the most interesting stuff. So I love that this space, takes you there in a quick way with when people share those stories. And that everybody's brain is wired differently, both for people thinking about doing it. Like, it's not for everybody. Everybody has a different experience. Everybody's in a different place or, needs different things. But also what it reveals from different celebrities. Part of what was fun about this was the diversity of people we had in this. Where there were commonalities and where there were incredible differences was sort of a great for us, a great fun exploration of the human condition,
Our buddy Nathan said, stay away from light bulbs.
Yes, good tip.
Good call.
Thank you, Nathan.
So I wanted to ask you, how in the world do you get all these people big stars to come on and say, yeah, I took psychedelic drugs and I'd like to talk to you about it. I mean, obviously the climate has changed significantly in the past several years, but even so, like pot is one thing. These are people talking about taking LSD and mushrooms. What conversations were going on there to approach celebrities and go, what do you think about coming on and talking about this?
It was really interesting because it took us 10 years to make this. So the conversation changed greatly over those 10 years. And honestly, since Michael Pollan's book, which is when this started to get in a more sort of safe space to talk about it with people, we were already done with our interviews. So what just happened?
What happened?
I don't know. The screen shut down for a second. We're good. We're back. Michael Pollan is somehow masterminding, shutting it down. Don't talk about me. No. But almost all of these conversations were kind of pre like this new revolution in psychedelics that sort of seems to be happening, where there's more press coming out about it, more safe spaces. It's on Good Morning America. There's podcasts like that has been growing the whole time we were doing it. So this all started it was actually 11 summers ago. I happened to be at a film festival that I'm on the board of out on Nantucket Island. I grew up there. It's my hometown. But Ben Stiller's also on the board. And every summer we end up having a meal, we talk and he happened to share this story about psychedelics. And I was like, oh my God, like if you're willing to talk about this, I think I could get a bunch of other people to talk about this. And then I could animate it. This is like something you could take people into people's brains and, elsewhere. So it was initially just like, Ben Stiller and a funny story. There must be something here. Let's see where we can go with this and see who will open up about it. And this is one of those life lessons that I always share with my kids, which is this thing that you have to crack, which is fear of failure, right? Which is one of the big things. It's like, it's okay to fail 9 out of 10 times. If you're failing 10 out of 10 times, eventually you got to check yourself. But you got to try a lot before you have success. You do a lot of podcasts that are like, well, that was okay. And then we have a great one, like everything takes a lot of swings. So
it's like Tenacious D says, we will tell you to continue or we will say stop. And then seriously, you must stop.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But was it like when you went there? So you talked to Stiller, who weirdly is the one who had the most negative experience on.
Yes. Right. That also gave me kind of an edge, which was like, I know I have like this story to contrast. So we're not going to just do all recreational, like drugs are great. For some people, they're not. So that's a great place to start because I know I'm going to get the other ones. People are going to want to talk about good, experiences, and those are the people who are going to be easy to get,
Right. So were they though? Was there a process of going from one person to the other, telling you, you should talk to this person?
Yes. So that was going into it, knowing that most people would say no. That for whatever reason. In my mind, the first thought was, well, if we got Ben, we'll go out and get Seth Rogen and Jack Black and Will Ferrell. We'll just get the funniest guys who have ever done this. Oh, and by the way, we should get Sarah Silverman and, just open the doors. Then, just thinking of people and people. You start to go out to people and very quickly learn they have a deal with Disney right now. Oh, they don't want to talk about it because they also had an alcohol addiction and they don't want to talk about any drug, any kind of addiction or drugs or experiences. Oh, they're raising kids and it's just not a good time. They're taking 2 years off and not talking to press, whatever. There's 1,000 reasons people say no, especially about a subject that at the time it's gotten better, but it's a very taboo subject. People, for a couple reasons. One, it's still thought of as a legal drug, and illegal drugs, so people are iffy, but also, it's a very revealing drug. So if you're going to share stories, you're kind of opening your brain. It's like the most intimate interview you can do. So I just went into it with there's going to be a lot of no's. Let's get this out to as many people as we can. And we hired a booker to help us. And we just sent letters to everybody we knew and everyone we could think of who might be responsive. And, it was really interesting. I would say it was 1 out of 20 were yeses. So there were 19 no's. So I had to be really good at just they're not being cool. People, it's tough. But we got 100 yeses. So that's how many people we asked.
That's amazing.
And it was the funnest process is I'd come to my email in the morning and it'd be like a message from the bookers. They'd say Carrie Fisher is available 3 days from now at 2 p.m. at her house. Ozzy Osbourne can do it today. If you can get there between 10 and 10:30, he'll give you 15 minutes. And Sting is available 2 years from now in New York. And you're like, yes, yes. You just say yes, of course. We'll do all of those. I'll figure out how to get there, And that's kind of how it just sort of piece by piece came together.
So it did take a couple years, I presume. I mean, obviously, like we've been covering a lot of entertainment-based documentaries lately, and we keep going, wow, there's a lot of people who just died in this documentary. And you unfortunately also have to deal with that aspect of that here, like sad Anthony Bourdain, Carrie Fisher, and then of course Fred Willard just recently. But so this was stuff you recorded a while ago, and you've been building it up and collecting it, and you've got this amazing interstitial animations and interstitial Adam Scott bits. I mean, I love that it was clear a lot of planning went into this. It makes it a little sad watching it with because of the fact that this is the sort of product, the way you did it, that does take a while to put together. And that people would obviously have passed on from there. But man, what a fun way to assemble these stories into one thing, and how much people were not only willing to come on camera and talk about their own experiences and their opinions about it, but to appear in these interstitial sketches as well.
Yeah. I mean, this was just calling in every favor. That was part of the thing too of why it took so long. Is you can call in a lot of favors over 10 years. If I tried to do this in 2 months, I would have been asking everybody for everything every day, and this was Adam Scott. I was doing Parks and Recreation at the time, and it was sort of the timing was right to go it'd be great to have Adam. What could I have him do? And those after school specials are low hanging fruit. I apologize for making fun of something so easy to make fun of, but it was this is a great way to use a bunch of funny people who I love and are around, and I know I can get to come in for a day and shoot something. But also making the point that was what I grew up in. These drugs, which are, Sting talks about it so well, as if you look at them as medicine and as tools, it changes the way you think about them. But when you think about them as drugs, that's what I grew up on, was just say no, war on drugs, psychedelics are part of that. If you touch them, you will jump out a window. And it was that's not the whole conversation,
In fact, it was a very tiny part of the conversation today, as we now realize that was just propaganda. What they were pumping out, the idea of when that happens, when the CIA pumps their own employees full of LSD and tell them they gave away state secrets, that's when people jump out windows. Also, to quote Bill Hicks, hey, dummy, birds take off from the ground.
We worked so hard with a law firm to try to figure out how we can use clips of other stuff and how long you could use before it was stealing somebody else's stuff. But that Bill Hicks stuff is amazing. If anyone hasn't seen, just search Bill Hicks on LSD. He's not actually on LSD. He's talking about it, but his stand-up is so spot on. That's another person who you're oh my God, we lost him in his prime too, and the stories he would have told, and
I mean, the greatest Bill Hicks quote ever.
There you go.
Today, a young man on acid. What if the news really told real news stories? Today, a young man on acid realized all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather. Legendary. I always like his, not all drugs are good. Some are great.
Yeah. Yes, he's amazing. I was lucky to be at the Letterman show a couple of times where he came on and did stand up, and I would say, just before you go into whatever you're about to ask, whatever that just sparked was just on the Carrie and Anthony, and I also have a wonderful interview with Tommy Ramone of all people, who talked about we had to pick and choose how much we could put in the movie, and I ended up just saving a bunch of stuff that I think there's about 50 interviews that I saved that I'm we'll do another one or a series or something.
You should.
Tommy Ramone talking about doing in the Ramones, doing acid in the 70s and in the East Village, and what that scene was like. And it's oh, that's so unexplored, what LSD meant to those guys. But we really felt in the edit room, we were sitting, because we talked a lot about Carrie Fisher, we talked a lot about Anthony Bourdain, and we're sort of ooh, do we share this now? Is this sad? What does this do? And we love those guys so much. And we love their story so much. And they were so happy to participate in this. They shared great stuff. And it started to feel wow, it would really be a shame not to share that with everyone. They both would love people to hear these stories, so it felt almost like a responsibility to share them and what they shared with us in a way. So
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's sad they passed on, and there's no question. And I've already seen people say which I don't agree with. They're like, well, it seems inappropriate. These guys died from drugs and they're on a drug documentary. It's like, first off, they definitely didn't die from psychedelic drugs.
Right.
You know?
And to some extent, Carrie talks about that in the movie. She says, opiates were my downfall, crazily. Yeah. And these drugs were not. These drugs helped me understand myself better, understand the difference between Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia, and like these really big, interesting concepts. Like what other window would we want to see through those eyes? Like, it's amazing she gave us her eyes to see through from Princess Leia's perspective. Like, what a gift. Why wouldn't we share that? You know, so
yeah, absolutely.
And Anthony, I mean, it's sad, you know, like battling depression and whatever, you know, the wherever that was, but the life he lived and the stuff he shared with us, hundreds of hours of footage of travel, which, you know, I feel like there's so many parallels with the psychedelic experience, these things that, you know, his whole life was about connecting with people, sharing food, sharing music. We're all made of the same stuff. We're all similar. If we can just have empathy with each other, we'll be better off as humans. Like, that was his life's work. And that's kind of, a lot of those lessons are, at least maybe psychedelics don't bring that to everyone, but they're at least remind people of a lot of that stuff, you know, that we're all interconnected, et cetera, et cetera.
I completely agree with you on that. I really liked, as our friend Harmony is saying, thank you for giving them back to us, even for just a moment. I strongly felt that way. It was nice to see them talk about it in that fashion. Yeah. I loved this. I considered myself quite the psychonaut when I was younger. Of course, now that I'm older, I'm like, I'm absolutely terrified to take psychedelic drugs now. I'm like, oh shit, what would it tell me about the last 25 years that I don't want to know?
Yeah. I think I thought about this too, you know, making this movie, you know, when you sit down with people and they share your stories, you can't help but get in their headspace a little bit. And then I'd finish an interview, some crazy, amazing story, and I'd be on the moon with them and like walking around. And then I'd be like, wait, I got to go do carpool. I got to shake this off and like get back to like, we got homework due. We got, you know, whatever. So
too much stuff to do to trip for 12 hours is what it comes down to. I'm like, I don't have time. I got to watch this. I got to write a thing. I got to contact that guy. Yeah, I know. And then we die going, shit, I never did figure out that thing about how I actually felt about God. I guess I'm about to find out anyway.
Right. So here's my tip. I have like a list of things that I'm like I like baseball. I don't follow baseball. I've never loved baseball. And I feel like, when I'm like 75, 85, my legs don't work so good. I can't play basketball, whatever. I can't go to movies or concerts, or I don't even want to. That's when I'll explore baseball. Maybe I'll golf, and I'll do lots of psychedelics. Like, I have time. I got like nothing to do except see what's going on. You know, that's a great time.
So I want to get a little bit off topic, and I'm looking at your background there, which has the amazing images of Homer from the Japanese commercial that you wrote that episode. You were a co-executive producer and writer on The Simpsons from season 7 to 11, which are many consider to be the golden period of The Simpsons.
I know.
I'm sure you do.
They actually paid me during that time. So those were some of the best years.
As well as being one of the original writers for David Letterman show back during its crazy... I never heard anybody use this term, but I'm sorry, it was punk rock during that period. When it was
I was really lucky at Letterman in that I was there for the end of NBC. I was there for about 3 years at NBC, and then for about 3 years at CBS. And it was a little bit of like taking the punk rock out of it, but there was still this, like, the first year at CBS was sort of like, wow, people actually are watching. So we had this kind of late night show that no one cared about. We could try anything. And then we did it, and people loved it for a little while. So that was a great combo. And then it got to be a grind and got exhausting, but it was pretty fun for a while.
And you were the guy in the bear suit. Now, IMDb only lists one episode, but there were multiple episodes with the guy with the bear suit. So I assume that was you as well those other times?
Yes, I was. I think there were maybe 8 guy in the bear suit experiments, and I was 7 of the 8. There was one done after I left, and one of my best buddies.
Oh, I'm trying to make this work. It's not working. Sorry. Continue.
It looks cool, whatever you're trying to do.
I'll just keep moving things around.
One of my best buddies and friends who, there you go. Look at that. That's amazing. Took over John Beckerman, who was a writer there with me. And he ended up donning the bear suit after I left. But I did don a bear suit on the Naked Trucker and T-Bone show on Comedy Central one time, and I wore a bear suit in something else. Anyway, it's been great. A great run in bear suits.
Wait, hold on. So bear suit is not new to you. That was like not even the last. People go, did you see him in the bear suit on Letterman? That was hot. Hey,
Yeah.
I hear you're good at wearing bear suits, Donick.
Well, it's one of those things that, like, I think in comedy rooms and comedy writers, it often is like, hey, what if a bear came in the room? It's like an easy way to make something funny when you're sort of burnt out and you're like, well, I don't know. How about a monkey? We can't get about. What about a guy in a bear suit? Then we don't have to deal with the animal trainers and whatever. But Dave Keckner from Very Funny Man, and
Of course.
so I was doing a show with him on Comedy Central called the Naked Trucker and T-Bone Show, and there was one point where he was out in the woods and he battled a guy in a bear suit, and I was kind of like, maybe I should be the guy. Like, I couldn't let it go. I had to be the guy. I was like, that's kind of my thing. But I had to wrestle him. It was 110 degrees out in the woods, and he threw me to the ground. The bear suit cut my eye. I got stitches here. I've earned bear suit accolades. Anyway.
Yeah. Do you still have the bear suit? Is it there somewhere? Can we just not see it in camera?
This was the gross thing about Letterman, was it was always rented until about the 6th or 7th time I was the guy in the bear suit. They'd rent it from a Broadway prop shop, and it would always come, and it's like, there were a couple times where like, the bear suit's out right now. And I was like, who else is renting the bear suit, and what is it going through? And I love that comment, Nathan. We love Midsommar, and that's my daughter's favorite movie. We've watched it a number of times, but I wish I was in that. Please call me, anybody who's considering putting someone in a bear suit. But yeah, you get the bear suit back, and sometimes somebody else had worn it and sweat in it and worked out something in it. You have to spray it down and climb back in. That should be.
Can I say as well, you've been on so many good shows, Just Shoot Me, Parks and Rec, which I'm on a full watch right now, where you were a co-executive producer for. You created Little Bush, which was terrific. Yes. I totally remember that. Started as like more of a, what?
How come I can't? Oh, there we go. There's a Little Bush thing right there. There he is. Can you see that?
No.
Here. That's it. There's.
Oh, I was like, what's happening? Oh, right in the background. I was like, did you have a technical effects I did not have?
Here, I'll run these through. Can you see these? So these are some original Late Night with David Letterman bumper photos.
That's awesome.
Which are pretty fun.
That's super fun.
And then that's Little Bush over here. I don't know if anyone cares about that, but that was my in-laws had this carved for me down in Georgia as a Christmas gift. So that was pretty sweet.
Super cool.
And you got a selection of Mr. Sparkles. This is by an artist named Greg Deal, who did a chief named Pete holding a Mr. Sparkle box. My camera won't tilt up, unfortunately, but there's a few there. Hey, thanks, Charles. We did a fundraiser with Shepard Fairey at his gallery, where we had about 60 artists reinterpret Mr. Sparkle, and then we had this great show. Shepard did one, Dabs Mila did one, all this great selection of people. And of course, I was like a kid in a candy store when I went to the fundraiser. I was like, oh my God, I wrote that episode. I love these. And I bought 6 of them. I couldn't stop from supporting the cause.
Everybody loves Mr. Sparkle, man. Everybody does. That's a legendary Simpsons moment. I'm sorry.
So fun. That was the first episode I got to write. I had 2 things that I loved about The Simpsons. I felt like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. The first episode I worked on was they had already written it, but the animatic came in for the Homer Soulmate episode where the chili eating contest, and he has this like acid trip basically where he goes out in the desert, and Johnny Cash did the voiceover. I just got there, and they're like, oh, Johnny Cash is recording, and we're got to rewrite this episode where Homer's like finding his soulmate. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, I got the best job in the world. This is gonna be so fun. And then the first episode I wrote was the Mr. Sparkle one, which was just so lucky that we kind of stumbled into that. I grew up on Nantucket Island, and one of the things me and my dad would do is go to the dump and pick for stuff because there were no malls there. There's no stores. So we'd go and look at the dump and find things. So I had pitched that as like a B story for Homer and the kids. Are like, they go and they find some weird stuff, and and then we kind of came up with the idea that Homer finds his face, and then we just wrote it as though we had a mystery to unlock, and we kind of figured out the mystery, and it took us to Japan. So that was really fun.
That's it's funny you mentioned the Johnny Cash episode, because both those, that and the Mr. Sparkles, have psychedelic aspects to them.
Yes. And then the second year I was there, or third year I was there, I wrote The Doan in the Wind, which has a full town mushroom trip, basically. But it might be ayahuasca. We don't know what he harvests the backyard of the juice guy's place, and then everyone drinks it.
So did any of the other shows that you've worked on also reflect your interests in this stuff?
Let's see.
So you had New Girl.
Little Bush there's a psychedelic hair sequence in Little Bush. I think we got Phil Lesh to do the voice from the Grateful Dead to do the voice of a pharmaceutical representative, which was this crazy weird, I went in, he was recording, and he came out of the recording studio and sat and read these lines as endorsing pharmaceuticals and explaining why they're good for little kids' brains. It's amazing. So we did that. Animation really lends itself to bringing this stuff to life in a way that is silly, but not trying too hard, but also you're able to have a dragon appear if you want to. And when you try to do this stuff in with CGI or whatever, you need a lot of money to do the live action version of that. So
I've not watched all of Silicon Valley yet. I actually have to watch the last season now for my review show. But I don't remember there ever being a psychedelic episode of that, and I would have loved to have seen these mega dorks have to deal with intense psychedelics.
Microdosing gone wrong of some sort of
exactly micro, and it ended up macro, and they're what would guys like this, that life it consists of coding and geeky stuff, but done in not like you and I have experienced it. How would they experience unexpected tripping?
Yeah it's I'd love to put these stories in part 2, but Reggie Watts shared a lot of stories, and it felt like he went to a place they would have gone, which is he has a very mathematical brain, and he I don't know if he was doing coding, but he was doing a lot of equations and math and stuff, and some of his psychedelic experiences really took him into these sort of quantum spaces full of numbers and geometric shapes, and I could see those guys going inside the computer, Matrix style, something.
Right. Yeah. Somebody already commented, look like the Matrix. In fact, same person says, what are your favorite live action scenes of psychedelics, which has famously been a thing that's hard to get right?
Yeah. Luckily Steve Agee described that for us in the movie, so we could say they never get it right, and then we kind of make fun of it and do our bad version, even though that's the best we could do, kind of. But he mentions Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as doing a pretty good job of bringing that to life, that sort of feeling and the way things move and stuff.
That's as close as I've ever seen it done to what it actually feels like.
Yeah, and I would say. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. I'm trying to think of others. There, that Naked Lunch movie that Cronenberg did had some. I don't know if it was specifically. I mean, it was like being a junkie and weird stuff happening. But there's some amazing lizard people and things in that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I always think, and I think. I don't know. We have not talked about your particular experience. We've not talked about my particular experience, and we're not going to, because that we could sit here for 6 hours and talk about this one time.
Right.
Anybody who's done a lot of acid has experiences like that. But Fear and Loathing, the sequence where he's inside the bar at Circus Circus and the floor is just doing its stuff, and you talk about this in documentary, and everybody's lizard people. I was like, I've tripped at Circus Circus at 1980, I want to say 7. And it was pretty much like that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that book. So that book was one of the first psychedelic experiences I had, was just reading that book. The Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, great book, great adventure, great way of shifting the way you look at storytelling. Gonzo journalism is a beautiful concept of just we can actually get inside this stuff, tell our own version of it, bring it to life in a way that is more meaningful than the facts, really, talk about original fake news in a weird way. But I think Terry Gilliam got that and was like, I've got to bring this to life. I've got to do this justice. If I'm going to make this movie, that scene in particular, if I'm not going to do that right, what am I doing? So luckily he had the pull to get it done.
Let me ask you about a couple other films that I thought were positive drug use, and admittedly, even Fear and Loathing is like, yes, it is at points positive drug use, and at other points it's not.
Right.
But specifically dealing with psychedelic drugs, another one that came to mind was Altered States.
Right.
Do you remember this one?
I haven't seen that since like it was on Cinemax in high school, or whatever. But yeah, that was pretty like that Videodrome and Altered States. There was like a moment where people were exploring this other side.
Yeah, and admittedly, it got kind of ridiculous where it was like, oh, he's taking psychedelic drugs and exploring history, and then he turned into a caveman. I don't know why. I'm still unclear on why that happened, but it was pretty cool. Like, very open-minded look at psychedelic drug exploration, of course, in the 70s. And then, of course, in the 60s, we have The Trip, which is even more out of date.
Yeah. So I almost used clips of The Trip throughout the movie just because it's kind of amazing. It's the whole story and it's hilarious, but it's also kind of right on. But like it feels very dated, Yeah. And we really wrestled with that too of just going like, I don't think we want to say that these drugs only existed in the 60s and then got campy. That yes, that's where we kind of left off, and for some reason we stopped talking about it for 50 years, and now we're kind of back online with a real conversation.
Well, I mean, the horror of the counter culture of going, these people went insane. These people took acid and they became junkies and sold their bodies. Like that was clearly, I don't know. I can't say I don't know anyone, but I knew a lot of people who took acid, and like at least 50 when I was growing up, of people I encountered all the time who took acid. 2 of them turned to harder drugs.
Right. Yeah. No, and it's one of these things. Like I've done a few like mental health podcasts and stuff, and it really is like, would not advocate this for everyone. Would not advocate that it's you take it cavalierly. All we're hoping is that there's a bigger, wider, rational conversation about some of the things that it can help. It can help in certain ways, and we've kind of yeah. So
I'm interested in the facts, not fear mongering and not propaganda. Obviously, there's plenty of reasons for that because, as Bill Hicks pointed out many times, I'm not quoting him here. I'm not even paraphrasing, but essentially, thinking about politics when you're on acid makes you realize how much of it is nonsense.
Yes. And when we look back at the 60s too, is like, I think we've done a bad job of just going like, right, hippies were like naked and whatever. And then we start to think about it. And maybe the reason psychedelics are back in the conversation is because culturally, we really had hit a wall, and there were a number of things that we were pushing back, like society was scared of: civil rights, women's rights, the planet, the green movement. All of these things were like, well, if we can lump this all in as these were freaks and crazy and acid heads, we can stop a lot of stuff that scares the establishment, And we're kind of back there now, 50 years later, with like, oh, that didn't work out so well. Putting all that stuff aside.
And now we've got things like the Dr. Albert Hoffman Institute in, I want to say, Switzerland?
Yeah.
Which has been actively studying it. One of the few countries in the world that still their government pays for those sort of studies. Most governments have been pressured into saying, no, we don't do drug studies, like funded drug studies on drugs we've already decided are bad. But going, okay, and now lots of evidence is coming out that drugs like LSD, mushrooms, ecstasy actually are really good at fixing situations that nothing else they found are, like PTSD.
Yeah. That was a really interesting part of this is like when Michael Pollan's book came out and he talks a lot about that, I was like, oh, he just wrote the book that we just made with celebrities trying all these things and sharing what they learned. And I was like, oh no, can we even release this movie? And then I was like, oh no, that's totally different. It's just it's the same conversation. But we were reading all those studies as we were doing this, and more were coming out, and just reading people who have gone through a controlled version of this with a therapist who helps you figure out what you need and integrates it into your life and knows the dosage and where it came from and eliminates all the things that can go wrong. You still can have a bad trip, by the way. It doesn't mean, go out of scary places.
But you were the first person I've ever seen suggest ever in anything ever, which I've been saying for decades, your bad trips are more valuable than your good trips in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
If you go into it with the right attitude.
Sting was really good in this movie of going like, sometimes they're just what you need. Sometimes that's the thing that you're confronting and have to get over. But that Sting really helped me understand, like rephrasing this, like, well, if it's a medicine that you take that sometimes takes you to dark places, or it's a tool you take that you're trying to fix something, you might have to break through something, have some sort of breakthrough or get through something. Then it's not just like, I got an amusement park ride, I got a roller coaster and it was bad. Like that's not the point, like the point is so the places where it's been amazing to me reading about and reading people's real experiences is like you said, post-traumatic stress disorder that, veterans have talked about coming back and going through these therapies with it. Addiction, like people are finding that it can help you break addiction patterns and get out of certain things. So it's this crazy thing where we're using a quote unquote drug that is illegal to treat a drug that is prescribed by pharmaceutical companies that you get addicted to and destroys your life. Depression. And I think the best way I could phrase it from a non-professional, again, I'm a comedy writer and filmmaker, so not a doctor, but is I think all of these things, the commonality is all of these things are boxes that you get stuck in, whether it's depression or, suicidal thinking or addiction, are all forms of things where you've hit a wall and you can't see past it anymore. And what psychedelics do, whether you like it or not, is zoom you out of that very quickly. So people talk about it being like the equivalent of, a 6 months of therapy in 12 hours. So trips are long, but they also can, spur on these incredible awakenings or realizations, give you an incredible shift of your perspective that might take you 6 months in therapy to get to, if you're working at something like that, and really focused and, et cetera.
That was my take, but I grew up from the generation that was like, took Timothy Leary seriously, who was still alive then. I was like reading about all this stuff. We were taking psychedelic drugs as kind of like this is like a big decision. It's not just to party with. When people gave me psychedelic drugs, they were like, don't go into this lightly, man. This is serious. Right. This can change your life.
Right. This is a journey. This is yes. And I still say that to a lot of people is like, take it that seriously. Like even in the context of dead shows in the 80s, it had that ceremony. It still had that ceremony and that bit of, like, look, those were parties also, but there was still sort of this, like, we all know what we're up to here. This is, a rite of passage. This is where you're doing some real work. We're trying to figure some stuff out. We're looking for good stuff. We're not just, like trying to kill feeling, and anyway, but I still tell people, I'm like, yes, read Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. Read what Timothy Leary said. He scared people and he made a lot of mistakes and he had an enormous ego and that got in his way in some cases. But he also has an incredible amount of wisdom in this space to share. Ram Dass also. I think Fear and Loathing is a great read and a fun ride just for the like crazier side of this. But then the books that I'm so surprised, I don't know where these went, but my mom gave me these very young. She was like, you got to read Carlos Castaneda.
I was about to say Carlos Castaneda, yeah.
Those books are so good and so much about the spiritual aspects of this and the lessons that are out there for learning in sort of they're wonderful reading. They're not like, they're fun to, so anyway. And yes, Ken Kesey's One Flew of the Cuckoo's Nest is fantastic.
Obviously the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
Love that so much. Yes.
And where are the modern psychedelic writers? Because I'm not aware that there are any.
Yeah, there are actually there's a lot of books in the space. When you start to make a movie about this, they start to come out. I think part of this is that this space has been, like again, taboo and not mainstream in any way. So Michael Pollan's book did a huge service in getting this into the New Yorker crowd, being able to go like, oh, this is a mental health proposition. Let's talk about this. I'm forgetting her name. I don't even know how to say it. Aolette Wald. She wrote a book about microdosing and depression. And really kind of like Michael Pollan was like, I'm not a psychedelics expert. This is not something I do, but I'm facing, depression. So there are more and more books of people sort of going like, here's what I learned. Here's what I learned.
And microdosing is an interesting new aspect towards the psychedelic experience that was not a thing. I mean, when I was young, it was not about taking less, it was about taking more. It like slowly building up. I mean, the first time I did it, it was half. And the last time I did it, it was like 40. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the one thing that I regret about that there wasn't a rational space to talk about when I was growing up. There was this sort of, I was learning about how much you can drink. Can you drink 12 beers and how many hits of acid all at the same time? Like, oh, if I can eat 2 grams of this, I can eat 10 grams. Whoa, like just idiotic, and peer pressure, mixing all that stuff into one thing. You quickly learn that psychedelics are a different animal. And you're like, all right, let's remove that from that nonsense,
And it shouldn't be discussed even in the same topic. It's not the same type of effect. It's a psychological drug. It would be like people getting together in chat rooms and talking about how those great times they took more Prozac than they needed to. You're like, no, it's that's not really how this should work. But you know what? We are going to move to the challenge round, which I warned you about, where I show you a couple images from films that involve psychedelic drugs and see if you can guess what they are. There are no prizes or penalties. It's just for the fun of discussion. And also, because we're largely a film and television oriented site, to turn our viewers onto some stuff they may not know about otherwise. But before we do that, I just want to say real quick, weird coincidence. One of the last things I saw about when I was researching stuff that you'd done was that you wrote the Ron White show in 2005. And weirdly, I ended up becoming friends with Ron White about a year and a half ago because I ended up at a mutual friend's house in a swimming pool with him on like a Memorial Day party. And just, we were ended up smoking pot and hanging out, and we've just stayed in touch. He's
a wonderful human. He's a very approachable dude. And this is one of those things that when somebody asked me the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and I was like, I don't know what is this? That's probably not my thing. Like, I'm edgy and indie and whatever. And then I was like, all right, fine. And I sat down with a guy, and this is like this lesson over and over with where we are with politics and the country and everything. It's like, Ron and I had a great time hanging out. He told some amazing stories. We just started to, hit it off. And you're like, right, good. Comedy, music, psychedelics. Like, there's a lot of things we can bond on. Let's do that. So, yes, movies too. So, yeah, hit me. I'm terrible at trivia, and I'll fail miserably, but let's give it a go.
That's okay. This is not about judgment, sir.
Good.
It's just about talking about the movies. First off, here we go. This is not necessarily about films that explore positive drug use, for the record.
It's Diva comes to mind because there's the bald guy, but I know it's not Diva.
All these are involving psychedelic drugs of one sort or another specifically, though.
Yes. Okay. So is this I don't know.
This is the hardest one on the list. I will say it's from 1978.
Oh, 78. I remember Psych Out being one of the movies I watched. I'm thinking that this is Seinfeld.
You didn't work on that one, did you? I don't know. It's not on IMDb. Okay. But I would have loved to have seen They All Accidentally Get Dosed episode. But anyway, this is actually, to be fair, the Friends episode of that would have been even funnier. But this was Blue Sunshine, a weird little cult horror film that starred Zalman King, who, of course, people know best from being his Red Shoe Diaries and what have you.
So is this like a Manson kind of thing, a cult that gets into acid and
kind of, but more crazy and bizarre than that. I mean, it really gets into this new type of LSD called Blue Sunshine that people start lose their hair and they become psychotic killers. And obviously that's what it's actually about, but it got into a very psychedelic type movie. And it was one of those films that was kind of like, oh, warning, psychedelic drugs.
Right.
But now it's looked at as quaint and funny, and people who like to take acid like to watch it.
Great. Blue Sunshine, I'm in.
I mean, it's basically the reefer madness of LSD films,
yes,
if you will. All right, so let's go to our next one here. See if you know this one. This is considerably more recent.
Is it oh my God. I want it. It's like, is it the Beatles one that was done recently? No.
This is from 2018. It is from not a first-time director film. It is not an American director. and it's not his first film involving psychedelic drugs.
I can tell you I didn't see it.
Okay.
Based on the image.
Well, this is Gaspar Noé's Climax, which is I think the best thing he's ever done, and I do highly recommend it for people who like deeply disturbing stuff. Yeah. Sophia Botella is in it.
Everybody, make your lists. I'm making mine now.
You're like, oh, deeply disturbing and drugs. I'm writing this down. Okay.
This is a great binging for me and the kids. Once we're done with talking tonight, I'll go dial them up.
I think this next one you're probably going to get, and let's see what happens.
Well, that's Nick Cage.
That is Nick Cage.
Is it? What did he take acid in? Is it a David Lynch movie? Is it him down in New Orleans, port of call New Orleans? No,
I've still not watched that. I need to. Everyone tells me it's well worth seeing. That
is so worth it. If you like something that feels like it's like dangerous but makes you laugh your ass off, that is. I want to do a cartoon version of that so badly, like reboot that series as a cartoon with Nick. Anyway. I don't know, what in the world is he up to? He's covered in blood here.
This is another cult who takes psychedelic drugs movie. This is Mandy, which came out in 2018, which has in the horror crowd has become like their big new, oh my God, we love this movie so much. And to be fair, this is one of those movies that is definitely would be cool for certain people to take on psychedelic drugs. Right. Not everyone. It's decidedly a horror movie. It's decidedly wildly psychedelic, no question, but it is pretty disturbing.
Looks like such a nightmare. Do not take your psychedelic viewing tips from Chris. This looks like bad trip fodder, so bad. But even that picture would be like, oh no, what am I seeing? I have a quick Nick Cage story. When I first moved into my house in Hollywood, we found out that 2 doors down was the house that Nick had bought for his baby mama, like of some sort, that he had divorced or they had a son together. And we were both repped by CAA at the time. So one day I got a stack of checks came through my mail slot, and it was like this thick, 45 checks. And I was like, what am I getting paid for? And then I looked and they all were for Nick Cage. And I was like, do I cash in right now and just hit the road like in a Nick Cage movie and like cash these and get out of town? But I just put them in their mailbox. And
I would have loved to have seen your script for what happened when you did that and Nick Cage chased you down.
Chasing me down, yes. Yeah. Yes. Nick, if you're listening, let's make that movie.
Isn't he playing a movie now? Isn't he in a movie coming up where he is playing himself in an extreme situation? I feel like that's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the number 4.
Yes, Persona.
Close.
Oh, what's it called?
That's the Ingrid Bergman film.
Oh, right. It's called Performance.
Performance, yes, indeed.
I had to dig from my working in video store days.
I know, right? I haven't seen this one since I was in high school. And this was the Nicholas Roeg film that was about that starred Mick Jagger and had him taking LSD and deciding that it was making his life better, which it's questionable whether or not that's true in the film itself. Our last one, make sure this is going in here. And I will say this was largely made in Austin, Texas, as your clue. About, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago. Not entirely sure.
Waking Life.
No, but but similar people, pretty much the same people did it.
It's Linklater, and it's not Slacker, and it's not Waking Life. It is, and it's not Undone. It's but it's rotoscoped. What is it?
It is A Scanner Darkly, based on the Philip K. Dick book about a psychedelic drug, Substance D, that causes bizarre hallucinations, that 20% of the population is addicted, and involves the government because of that developing a high-tech surveillance system. Wait, is this what's actually happening?
That's amazing. That's yes.
It's maybe coming. I'm just paranoid. I shouldn't have tripped before I did this interview.
No. Yes, that's awesome. I want to watch all these. Here's what happened is anything released after 2008, like I have children, I can't watch anything. There's no time for anything.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make some time and watch it. Those all look awesome. Great great selection. And I got one right.
You did indeed, and points for that. And, more importantly, hopefully, not only did you say, oh, this is stuff I'm writing down, hopefully other people do too.
Yes. Please.
What's important is turning people on to art, and art that makes them think, or at the very least, just have a good time.
Have a good time, guys. Come on.
Donick, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. You've been amazing. I'm going to put you in the bigger image here. There you go. You've been amazing. I was so thrilled. First off, I didn't even know about your background when I was like, I want to talk to the guy who made this movie, Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, because I'm like, I feel this. This is the movie I've been waiting to see, and I thought it was great. I've been recommending it to everyone. You should watch this movie. And then to look and find out like Letterman, which for me like was like formative talk show stuff, Simpsons, all this stuff. I was, wow, this guy is amazing. I can't wait to talk to him. Been super excited all week to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Chris. Your show's great. Enjoying it. I'll tune in for from now on, and stay tuned for like series or some sort of sequel or something. Maybe we'll do a prequel for this movie. Weirdly, and we'll come back in and talk about it.
Right on. And hey, man, if you want to chat about like ideas for other movies or people involved with stuff, psychedelic experiences in the history of entertainment is one of my specialties.
Share whatever you got, man. It's all good. I love it. I'm gonna watch. I did a lot of watching Psych Out and The Trip and stuff, and then anyway, It's all good. We got a home for it.
Oh, one last thing I'd recommend, and I didn't put this up, but there's a movie called Blueberry. It is based on a French-Belgian comic book series called Blueberry. Here it was often retitled Renegade, but it stars Michael Madsen and Vincent Cassel and Juliette Lewis, and it is a Western where the main character has to solve his problem by taking psychedelic drugs and conquering his own fears to uncover a suppressed memory. And I highly recommend it.
So a Western set in what time period?
Like, I mean, what you normally like Western Wild West stuff. Yeah, I don't know precisely. Yeah, it's crazy weird stuff, and I highly recommend it. Yeah. Thank you, Donick. We're not going to go away quite yet. We're going to come back with our crew for more news of what's going on right now. But yeah, I love talking to you, man. And everybody watch. I'm not even kidding. Have a Good Trip and Adventures in Psychedelics. It will make you laugh so hard, and hopefully you'll learn something too.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks. We'll see everybody soon.
Thanks, Donick.
All right.
I'm going to bring in some of our regular crew so we can discuss some of the crazy fucking news that has come out in the world of entertainment this week. First off, let me just say, I am so happy to have Spider Mike here.
Hey, guys.
Hello. I can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, is this good?
Hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
I brought a mic.
I can hear you.
Sweet.
Well, that's why everything went wrong. He gave you his
Yeah, he would let me.
He gave you his broken Xbox. He gave you his broken mic. The
Xbox more or less works. More or less.
Yeah. How are you
everybody doing?
You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good. My dog's just hanging out on the bed behind me.
People keep asking me why is Mike not doing any reviews? Like, yeah, well, he just signed up for a bunch, people. So calm down.
I'm trying. It's difficult. I have 10-hour shifts nowadays, so time is much harder than it used to be.
So coming all the way, like literally across the living room, is your roommate, Mike the editor.
Other Mike, yes.
Yes. I'm literally on the other side of the wall right now.
You're so pale on the screen. It's like insane.
Yeah.
We just added another mic to the site too, and I'm like, you realize you're gonna have to have a nickname at some point, right? Just saying. We've also got Jordan Worth Cobb. Hello. What is that?
There's no Jordan. Right only
what is
Kong.
Happening? I feel
it's a Kong.
Yes, it is. It is a King Kong figurine that I won from our very own Matt Frank on a Twitch stream. So
there goes the dog.
Oh yes. God, go take care of the dog.
And sorry, I know I'm not food. And yes, I know I'm not wearing my usual pretty face. Bit of a last minute, but
that's what the Kong was for.
Well, that.
I mean, I can't keep up with your kids today. I figured that was some new thing that we're now all just strapping action figures to our face. You old man, you don't get us.
Well, no, not yet. And like I said, I just don't look my usual fabulous self, since I am figuring out what type of makeup I do and do not enjoy.
I'm not very good at it either.
No, I'm actually pretty good at it myself. It's usually like blood all over, like sort of a Cary look. General, sometimes I'll like rip open a cheek and try and have like a fake tongue hanging out the side of it.
No,
Like,
I do. No, I do enjoy that too.
Yeah.
He gets his tips from Craig T. Nelson specifically.
Also joining us from the cast of any given post-apocalyptic punk rock horror movie is Nathan Flynn.
Whoa,
That was a weird intro. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I did shave my head. What's up, y'all?
That's what I'm saying. Man.
Probably why the intro was that way.
Look,
It was a drunk decision.
If you do this,
Of course it
you would look like a crazy punk rock post-apocalyptic biker guy is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on the leather from Amazon. It's really not just coming on time.
Aren't we all?
Leather, way of the future.
Okay, so hold on one second. Let me just text stuff there. Okay, there we go. Let's talk news, guys. Let's talk about the Justice League.
Dun dun dun.
Oh boy!
Oh my gosh!
Of America.
I forgot this happened this week. It feels like so long. With
It
all
feels
the
like
responses.
it lasted like a year ago.
Aren't you
Yeah.
guys excited about this? That this
No,
Justice League. We finally the Snyder cut is gonna happen. Oh my god!
I'm only excited that fanboys are finally going to shut the fuck up. That's
They,
fine.
they haven't. That's all.
I think
There's so
the-
many memes already.
The funniest thing that could happen is if it's really great.
Yeah, that'd be,
All right, I'm gonna try and sum up my feelings as best as possible. Who gives a fuck? Okay, I know some people give a
Jordan,
fuck,
now,
like,
Jordan. Some people clearly do give a fuck. Now, I'm not saying
Something
I.
should happen to get the
Fuck.
thing done.
I'm
They
not
don't
saying I
even
give
like
a fuck
money
about
to
what they think.
charity.
I'm just saying some people clearly give a fuck because it's been loud enough that literally no one could miss it.
It's crazy.
I can't believe how much money HBO is putting into this movie that was essentially a flop, you know?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
let's not forget. First off, there is not exactly a dearth of new material that is.
Oh,
ready to
that's
release.
fair.
This would never have happened if it wasn't for the quarantine. Two, interestingly enough, despite talks of we're bringing the crew back together, they are not. Snyder said, "Hey, I need to get the crew back together," and Warner Brothers owns HBO said, "No, here's $20,
we
$30
wasted
million.
enough money.
Here's $20-30 million to do what you need to do in editing and special effects. That's it."
We're gonna need more than
Yeah, I don't know what else
$20
you were
million as
expecting.
far as special effects.
Take all that Joss Whedon charm that made the fucking thing watchable right out of it. I mean, I don't know. I'll watch it just for pure curiosity because I thought the Justice League movie was just okay.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when you take all the Whedon out of it, and it's just see if it's anything as bad as Man of Steel or Batman.
That movie Superman is so bad though. Man of Steel, like I have a love-hate relationship with Man of Steel, but I just want the mustache cut of Justice League more than the Snyder cut.
Oh yeah, totally.
I want that so bad.
By the runtime.
I want to see the
If
cut
it
where you
hadn't
see all their
been-
buttholes.
Yeah, that's it.
All of the
It-
parademons,
honestly,
assholes everywhere.
Yeah.
We were
Honestly,
go ahead.
I just think if it hadn't been for just how toxic and how bad and and all the levels of harassment that were involved, maybe I would have given a shit, because I know I've made my feelings clear. I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan, and yeah, Justice League was just a big pile of meh. But weirdly, one of the things I did like was the interaction of the Justice League. But
On top of that, with Whedon being taken out of it, I mean, Cobb, you've been a Whedon fangirl as long as I've known you. That you're the one who got me into Whedon in the beginning.
That movie's a mess overall, but I don't care about the Whedon. I mean, about the God damn it, Mike. About the
Release the
Snyder
Whedon
cut.
cut.
All right. A while ago I might have, but if it hadn't been for how incessant and toxic that movement had been, that I've just been like, you know what? I don't give a shit.
Jordan brings
Fuck
up
it.
a good point. The movement for the Snyder Cut was so batshit insane that
So to
they
speak.
consistently would tweet at Jeff Johns every morning to tell him to go fuck himself, and then release
it's like, hey, I got Stargirl to worry about.
Any cultural movement in entertainment that is all about trying to get done what you want to get done in terms of creating product that's based on misogynist or tack oriented like contact is a flaw, is a broken movement. It's just broken, man.
Oh, no,
you're done. I don't want to hear what you have to say if all you can say is abusive shit.
It's weird though, because there was like half good, half bad. Like they raised money for charity at one point, but they did it in a weird way. Like they had got like 25,000, but only gave like 15 of it to charity, and then held the rest hostage unless they released the Snyder Cut. It's like, come on, guys, stop fucking up your own. Stop fucking up your good things. This doesn't make any sense.
Hey, let me.
I heard.
That's all I want.
Be very clear here for a second, and this concerns me because there is this perception that there's something about people who are fans of geeky stuff that makes them more toxic. They're not. What happened is that geeky stuff went mainstream, and obnoxious, toxic people are everywhere on almost every topic, except for things that are like, super intellectual to begin with that would exclude them anyway. So like stuff like that is inclusive, like this, superhero stuff. Yeah. Like the most toxic, loud voices there's many of them, and they're rising to the forefront only because everyone keeps retweeting them.
Yeah. I'm not the hugest fan of The Last Jedi, but you look at any reaction for that movie and you're just like, I'm going to leave.
They were still talking about Last Jedi at work, even like when Rise of Skywalker came out.
Guys, fanboys definitely made everything less fun to talk about.
Ruby Rose is leaving Batwoman. What is up with that? I'm gonna go remove myself from the stream here. Let me see if I can do this.
What happened? We're talking about Ruby Rose, right?
Entire episode of Batwoman, so I have no frame of reference here outside of I know who Ruby Rose is, and I heard she had a hell time working on it.
I've only seen Ruby Rose in Orange Is the New Black in that really terrible season, and wasn't she in John Wick 3 or was it John Wick 2?
John Wick 2. She played the mute.
But I watched her mostly with the Batwoman stuff when it came to crossover stuff, like a Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, Crisis on Infinite Earths was the thing that I saw her in. I thought she was pretty good. She was a pretty good Batwoman. She had a really good repertoire with Melissa Benoist, who played Supergirl, as well as a lot of the other cast members. And she had this great sequence with Kevin Conroy kind of thing as well. And it was a little bit of a bummer to find out that she decided to leave it, but finding out kind of all of the behind the scenes stuff that might have been part of it as well. It's probably a really good decision for her to have left.
Yeah.
Because once she got really badly injured at one point. Another thing is that apparently she just was hard to work with some of the people. So it was like a half and half sort of situation for why she left, which I found fascinating because they were usually pretty good about who they pick for these things. And this is actually kind of a big deal, amazingly enough, that somebody finally decided to leave one of these shows, like as the main character.
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing to really add to that. I mean, I saw on the Slack chat that there was talking that she was supposedly difficult to work with, but I don't know much about her, so I wouldn't know what her reputation was. Or
Jordan just joined us, and she would know a lot more about this than most people.
Yeah, I stopped watching Berlanti shows a long time ago.
Which is fine.
I watched it, and it took a while. I just like to say that now. It was good. Thank you for asking.
I saw the entire first season of Batwoman, which I personally do recommend. It is a little rough at first, but once it actually gets to the point where, the previous crossover takes off for me. But really it's come out more so that Ruby Rose, the commitment and such of being the lead for a TV show kind of just caught up with her. I really hadn't heard anything about her being difficult to work with. I had just seen her in.
Just Google it. It's out there.
Yeah, I remember hearing it beforehand.
Well, honestly, I hadn't heard it till we were in the Slack chat. It just came out. I was like, yeah, the commitment hours. It just kind of burned her out, got to her, and that personally upset me because I am a fan of the show, and I thought she did a really damn good job. Like, she actually embodied the characteristics I really like in a character like Batwoman, and being the lesbian fangirl I am myself, that kind of kicked all kinds of ass. But
I don't know, man. It's like I've never been. I think she's fine as a physical actress, but man, I watched those first 3 episodes. Like, wow, you're not good. You're not a good actress. I'm sorry, you're just not. You're not a good actress. And finding out that she has been really rude to service people repeatedly. Makes me
okay, if that's the case, then yeah,
fuck you.
She could definitely go. She could definitely go fuck herself if that's the case.
I just went like, and then there's all the thing like I don't know. I don't have a specific feeling about the idea of like obviously Batwoman is specifically a gay character and she is not. She's unclear sexuality as she's always been in her career. Been like, I don't feel like I should have to talk about it. It's like, okay. I mean, you don't necessarily, but like this character it's such a big deal that this is the first live action gay character in a big format that maybe it should be a straight up gay woman doing it.
Was she in the third XXX? I'm sorry.
She
was actually. That was the other thing I knew her from.
The only other thing I remember about the first XXX is like, wow, NFL Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez, you're the next to final boss in this movie. I did not expect that.
But ultimately, when it comes down to like, well, I didn't really like the hours. You're the star of a show that's like 20 something episodes a season. Fuck you.
Yeah, that is another thing. I might be the biggest Arrowverse fan here. I will.
No, I'm not going to fight him on that one. Yeah, I've seen a lot of it, but I couldn't say I've seen all of it.
No one's going to fight you.
Her, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, it's all good. I will happily wear that crown. I mean, it's one of the. Am I sick of 20 plus episodes on broadcast? Yes, I am. But I honestly am still a big fan of the Arrowverse. I really do like the writing, a lot of the characteristics, and I think it's been some of the best superhero TV stuff, even in recent memory. And weirdly enough, I just thought it all started with Arrow because I just thought Arrow looks like shit. What the hell? We're just gonna darken up Green Arrow, but then it turned out great. Billy Eichner for Batwoman, that'd be awesome.
I wanted to like Arrow so bad. Green Arrow is my second favorite DC hero, and I was just like, man, I hate this fucking show.
I stopped after Flash season 2, and I really enjoyed the first season of Arrow as like a hey, get drunk, watch this guy punish all of the like poor henchmen, and then spare the billionaire who's running it all.
I will.
I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the Billy Eichner bit.
Oh yeah.
Like, you guys totally need to stop the crime because I'm really sick of it.
I will say the one if I were to say, you know what, if the Arrowverse just isn't your thing, then I would definitely say just watch Legends of Tomorrow because that's a superhero version of Doctor Who. And it's like as a DC fangirl I've grown up as, it's like, wow, so I can make up pretty much any fucking crazy idea with any DC character I want, and this show will make it happen.
I've seen enough of it. It's fucking bonkers. I can't believe CW is just like, yeah, let's just let this go.
And bonus, it doesn't go into 20 plus episodes. It's actually been more or less around 15, 18.
I'll give you that.
So Black Lightning too, but
I haven't watched any of
that. I am disappointed at Ruby Rose.
I was recently like Legends of Tomorrow is the last one I care about anymore because it's got that just insane Doctor Who-ness. But then the end of the last season ended on this sort of like ridiculously feel good, but not in a good way, a trickly Disney-ish sort of way.
Okay, season 4, the current season 4 does kind of end in that way, but
it's awful.
I didn't mind it. I just thought it was, it was pretty sweet. It was fine. I mean, it definitely won't top the season ender where a giant, fluffy, blue teddy bear, more or less, fights a giant ass demon. Voiced,
Bebo, right?
Bebo, voiced by John Noble and Charles Armstrong. I do agree. Watch Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol's great.
Doom Patrol is the same type of psychedelia and craziness, only based on being super smart and
Yeah.
like really great writing, whereas Legends of Tomorrow works because at moments because it's like everybody throwing every crazy idea they have at the wall and a producer going, sure, fuck it, let's try it and see what happens.
Speaking of psychedelics,
sometimes it doesn't, and Doom Patrol is more like you can tell they actually took the time to write this fucking thing.
Speaking of psychedelics and superhero shows, Legion just got to say
yes,
that.
Legion was amazing.
Legion, yeah.
Okay, but what were you saying, Jordan?
I was gonna say that for my money, personally, Doom Patrol is the best comic book based or superhero show on TV today, right now.
Okay,
and
I still need to see it.
Not Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is so good.
Harley Quinn.
I've watched
God damn it! Yes,
Harley Quinn is so fucking good. I think it's the best thing ever.
Are you just saying live action though?
Okay.
If you're saying live action, then I'll go with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, live action. Because if I think overall, Harley Quinn's kind of kicking a lot of ass too. But
It's the Venture Brothers of the DC universe. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Michael Ironside back to Darkseid. They win.
I love that show. It's better than I had any expectation for it to be.
do check out Stargirl. I'm loving that so far.
Well, let me move on. I was really happy to see Tuca and Birdie got picked up by Comedy Central, by Adult Swim, which is weird because it was on Netflix and Adult Swim picked it up. And isn't it usually the other way around?
I don't know. That one's weird.
You don't see a lot of like streamer shows going to cable networks, but
this is the second time. The other one was One Day at a Time, which got canned by Netflix and picked up by.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
And
I
I haven't
haven't selective
seen.
with their shows lately.
Yeah,
I didn't know that
I,
because no one I know watches it. So
I haven't seen Tuca and Birdie at all. I just knew
it's a good show.
Hey, yeah, I just knew, hey, one hit wonder show, but I'll definitely check it out now. Since
we're doing an episode here that was about psychedelic stuff, and Tuca and Birdie super psychedelic.
Okay, then I'm in.
People who like Adventure Time and things like that, I think would also like Tuca and Birdie. It's a totally different type of show plot wise and situation wise, but visually it's psychedelic as fuck.
It's a much cheerier BoJack Horseman is another good way of putting
Alex
it.
was just sitting on my couch
so much
last
cheerier.
night, and he's like, I can't find the psychedelic void that Adventure Time has left for me. I tried Midnight Gospel, but that isn't quite the thing. So I think I'll recommend that, and maybe we'll start.
Yeah, Midnight Gospel is okay.
Yeah.
So moving on, one of my favorite things during this isolation experience has been Some Good News with John Krasinski, which was a completely homegrown, and I mean literally him putting together a thing with him sitting with a suit jacket and boxers at his desk, talking and trying to get here's some good news for us all to not like despair. And him creating these amazing moments where he would get some of his friends together to do cool shit for just regular people. Like the little girl had tickets to see Hamilton, who'd always been dreaming to see Hamilton. And he got Lin-Manuel Miranda and the entire original cast of Hamilton to come and sing for her. Like, wow, I literally cried watching that. I was
That's awesome.
So fucking touching.
Really cool.
Nobody was being paid, nothing like that. It was all just for the right thing. And so finding out that they've sold the show to CBS was like, well, welcome to 2020.
Capitalism.
Can't have a good thing without selling it for $1.
I mean,
I heard about it through just somebody going, look, I've never seen the thing, but he sold out like super fucking fast.
I get it. I mean, like, ideally, the show is still going to be like something to make people feel better with positive things, which is a good thing. We should have some positive things. But do you really think with him, by the way, not involved?
Yeah, he's not the host of it anymore.
Yeah,
for real.
Wow.
He said he's going to be like a producer or something, or
You know
like
what makes
maybe
you feel good?
have something on it.
Biting into the new breakfast buddy at Wendy's.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ, no.
I can't probably get that for free because I got an uncle who works at Wendy's, but no.
It just felt like I get it. Everybody, it's not. I get it. Yeah, they drew a dump truck on money up to his house, right? But at the same time, you're John Krasinski. You don't need the money.
Yeah.
If you had said 90% of all profits are going to this charities, I would have gone, okay.
Quiet Place 2 didn't get to premiere, Chris.
Huh?
Quiet Place 2 didn't get to premiere. He's got to make that money somehow.
Look,
But
guys,
come on. It's not like he's homeless.
hey, no one can live off license to wed residuals all the time.
Oh, man.
He's right.
That's your drop, Todd.
You can off The Office residuals. Anyone could. I guarantee you, even the characters on The Office who played like I only appear once every 3 episodes have bought a house based on that money.
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Also, Jordan, don't bring up bad Robin Williams movies. I don't want to think about them.
Oh yeah, forgot he's
there
in that
weren't
movie.
any. Oh.
So for you guys who are into the more culty stuff, and you should be, there's this great movie. I mean great, like one of my favorite movies the last 5 years, Tigers Are Not Afraid, which are
I heard that's really good. I've been meaning to watch that. It's on Shudder, right?
By director
Is that the
Issa
sequel
Lopez.
to Roar?
If you like Guillermo del Toro's sort of heartfelt fantasy pieces,
Okay.
then you're like Pan's Labyrinth, then Tigers Are Not Afraid is going to blow you the fuck away.
Does somebody
yeah.
fuck
Okay.
a tiger?
Shut up. There's no tiger fucking, okay? God damn
They're
it.
great.
You're always with the tiger fucking. You're always like, so when is this the one where someone fucks
Guillermo
a
Toro
tiger?
is just gonna get everybody to fuck every possible animal over time.
So
He's done
now
with
we
movies.
know-
Yeah, Mike,
who
that
that-
Slack group about fucking tigers.
So now we know who here at one of us is saying free Joe Exotic.
True. All right. So tigers are only afraid when Joe Exotic are around, but no, they're generally not afraid. But the point is, she hasn't done anything since then. Where she signed a deal with Blumhouse to helm a film called Our Lady of Tears, based on an article about a case of mass hysteria at an all-girls Catholic boarding school in Mexico City between 2006 and 2007. There was an outbreak where girls reported piercing pains in their legs, nausea and fevers, suicide attempts. And this apparently all had to do with a supernatural idea that I guess the Virgin Mary was telling them things. I don't know.
I remember hearing about that actually.
But I will tell you that
this is new to
because of this
me.
director, this is probably going to be. This is over 600 girls who experienced this. At
Oh
this
shit!
point. And this is
Mass
obviously
hysteria is mass.
not about this. In real life, this is not about that being a thing that was real. It's a fascinating look into mass hysteria and the way, especially adolescent people, are more deeply affected by that more than anything. And I hope that's kind of where they're going and making a horror movie specifically about that. But either way, I'm really curious. And, you know, not everything Blumhouse does is great. I just saw Fantasy Island. So, you know.
Fantasy Island.
Oh, God.
None of my coworkers knew what Fantasy Island was, by the way, and it made me very upset.
I had to explain to my wife. She was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Fantasy Island." She's like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "You know, it's the movie on the TV series." She's like, "I'm like,
Montalban, none of this makes.
And then the light came in through the window, and I went,
Like, Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
I was at work talking to somebody about it. I was like, "Oh, you guys say that trailer to the remake of Fantasy Island is like the remake?" I was like, "Yeah, Ricardo Montalban, the plane, none of this. No, none of
I've
you."
never seen an episode, but I know what it is because I've seen a bunch of parodies. And I'm pretty sure one of those VH1 I love the 70s, or I love the 80s type shows that talk about it. At some
I
point.
watched the shit out of Fantasy Island, for the record. I mean, I watched the shit.
I was
like on
raised on
reruns,
TV
so
Land,
it's
so
pretty
that came into the circulation.
Oh, yeah.
I only
that
knew
was like-
of
I was in love with the show called Love Boat, and don't judge me, man. We all loved the Love Boat, man. It was like every cool, or not really cool, but you know, guys who played like the tertiary, or even whatever the word is for not second but third characters in like cool movies made appearances on the Love Boat. Anybody who was
Yeah.
on any other.
So all the leather jacket wearing guys are called girls' tits.
And then the Fantasy Island was a spin-off of that, where they landed on this island. They're like, oh, okay, and so they can make your fantasy come
I
true.
never knew that.
They originally weren't like supernatural, but then as it went along, it was supernatural kind of more. Where it was like,
Yeah.
by the end, Mr. Rourke, played by Khan from Star Trek Wrath of
Ricardo
Khan,
Montalban.
was literally a Greek god by the end.
And
They
I
were
was
like,
cool
yeah,
with
I'm
That
really
makes,
Okay.
yeah, that adds up.
bored. But the movie was like, whatever. Anyway, listen to our review.
Yep.
We reviewed it on the latest digital. We talked about it. To finish up with news stories, David Robert Mitchell, going back into cult stuff here, who did It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, which fuck you is a great movie.
I really like that movie.
Still
That
haven't
was
seen
okay.
Wait, hold on. What did you say, Nathan?
I said I really like that movie a lot. Yeah,
God
Hey,
damn it.
look, hey,
it's like the long goodbye. It feels like the long goodbye, but like
hey, I didn't hate it. I just
Oh my god.
Everybody else shut up and let Nathan talk. He's my new best friend.
That scene. Dude, that scene with the songwriter. Oh my gosh. That was one of the best scenes of that year.
That's a great scene.
I have no fucking idea what either you're talking about.
See, occasionally me and Chris agree on things, and the lunar eclipse happens.
Yeah.
Not why there's a storm outside my window. Did you make this happen?
Dude,
Yeah.
there were like 6-inch hailstones coming down today. What was that? I don't.
Yeah,
I
you
think
guys-
me and Nathan were about to agree on something.
It was hailing
Dog's
over
starting to
here
freak out.
this evening. You fucks.
What?
Caused it. You fucks caused the hailing over here in Arkansas too, didn't you?
Arkansas?
Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah. My trucker
know
hand.
You know what, Chris? I will give you that because that is legitimately the first time I have heard that joke in a long ass time.
You haven't gone outside in a while, so yeah.
Heck. Yeah, fair.
The rest of the world does not consider that a joke. We just consider it the way we refer
Yeah,
to
We
it.
consider all of Arkansas a joke.
No, that is fair. That is fair. We do.
I drove to that fucking state last Christmas and it was depressing.
We're like, Arkansas. Well, we don't have Wizard of Oz.
No, it's my Kansas.
No, we only have Mike Huckabee, sadly.
Come on.
Oh, Jesus.
Ugh.
Indeed. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I got totally distracted.
Yes, dude.
It's very easy to get distracted.
I know. Heroes and Villains is the new take on superheroes from David Robert Mitchell, from this director who did Under the Silver Lake, It Follows, and what is the other film that he did, his first movie?
The Last American Sleepover or something like that, or
Yeah. But we don't know much about what's going on. All we know is it's for MGM. It's being described as a new take on superheroes. Mitchell does not make conventional films by any stretch of the imagination.
he doesn't
So-
seem to have a fixed genre either, because like it seems like everything he's done has been something very radically different from the others. So
Every film he's done has been a completely different genre of film, and I'm super excited to see what he does to piss off superhero fans. Like this time next year, Spider Mike's going to be like, fuck that guy, fuck him, and everything he just did. Spider-Man would never do that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not a big fan of Brightburn to begin with.
And then I
So
might
that's
be
like
the,
a lesser version, all that stuff.
Brightburn is terrible.
and then I might be on the opposite, being
It's
like,
just an Ultraman film.
as an appreciator of superheroes, this is brilliant. Who knows?
We're going long tonight, and that's fine. Anybody want to ask us any questions about current news stories or anything going on, please do. Marcos, more doggies is not a question. Appreciate
He's
it.
freaking out from the storm.
encourage
He's-
it.
he's- that's
It
what's
is a
on me
good
right now.
suggestion.
I have a Roomba. Does that count, Marcos?
No, it does not. There's no room.
Just bring what's left of your hair and pretend
there's
it's a
only
dog.
one dog in the entire apartment, and he's right there.
I have a Kong.
What are you doing, dude?
Hey, Dina, what are you doing, buddy?
He's
Hey, Dina.
curious.
What's going on, Dina?
Hey, puppy. Hey, puppy.
Do you have any thoughts on Super Goldine?
I don't know what that is, Kevin, but yeah.
Okay. Back on the bed for now.
All right.
Yeah, Dee's just afraid of the thunderstorm. I
This
think
is
that's what's going
Yeah,
on.
he's freaking out.
It's become completely ridiculous, and I apologize to anyone who was here to watch the amazing Donick Cary, which we just did a great interview with. For me,
It was
being,
great.
That was a fantastic interview. That was fascinating.
Oh yeah.
It was awesome.
I know I did it.
Fuck you, Chris.
Uh-oh.
That was his clone. That's not true. There's more than one Chris. That's the conspiracy.
Yeah.
Yes,
Gene ran over there.
I know what you meant, Kevin. I was just, you know what? You gave me the opportunity. You guys should use spell check, is all I'm saying.
Wow, Dean, what a traitor.
I don't.
He runs back and forth until the thunder goes away. He's fine.
Wait, that's the same dog in the other picture?
He just all he had to do is just go from one room to the other.
Yeah.
Ain't that right?
Oh,
Yeah.
what a little pooper.
Yeah, John Sitton and Amanda from Rage Select own his sister. They have Joy.
True.
Spell check.
True, Eggsy.
No,
More psychedelics for Chris.
Chris.
All of the psychedelics for Chris.
Either more or less.
I'm not
More.
taking psychedelics.
You know the psychedelics kick in when Dean pops up on both frames.
I'm not taking psychedelics for a very, very long time.
Chris.
And if someone gets a $5 subscription to Oneofus.net in the next 5 minutes, I will tell you about the last time I did psychedelic drugs in Austin, which fucked up my life for 2 days.
Oh,
Chris,
God.
so clearly you
I don't-
haven't had the rest of those curries, because one of them, it's like Russian roulette, or Thai roulette, actually.
Great. Good to know. And worse is that how much I love Thai food that I'll take the chance.
Want to play a game?
I do, in fact, want to play a
Jeez.
game. Yes, I do. Anyway, if you want to subscribe, you can do that, of course, by going to the site. On the right-hand side of the site, there is a list of where you can pull down list where you can see the various options. Anybody at $5 or above who subscribes right now, I will tell you a crazy fucking LSD story that happened to me.
If you do $50, Chris will take psychedelics right now.
No, I will not.
You'd have
I
to
will
find
not
it
do that
first.
again for quite some time.
Monkey's running dry on his supply.
This tastes funny. All right.
I don't have any LSD stories because I've never done it.
I know.
Because I'm lame like that.
You're what?
Because I'm lame like that.
Okay. I thought you said you're white.
I'm
Like
lamer
that.
than that,
I'm like,
so-
come on.
Oh, white like that now.
I don't have any drug stories. This is Facebook right now. Hi, Grandma.
I have weed stories, but they're not
Hey,
really-
Grandma, let me tell you.
I have
one time
none.
where
I
Nate
literally have
went-
no stories for that sort of thing in any shape or form.
I can
you know-
share.
You know what? I'm actually going to, because my wife just got home, I'm going to call an end to this episode. And if you give me a subscription and send me a note saying I gave a subscription because I want to hear your story, next week I will tell you my story.
If you do $50, he will take psychedelics.
That's not true. If
I'm
you do
making that check for him.
$1,000, I will take psychedelics.
I will take my
$50.
first psychedelic.
Put the
Dude, I'm
note.
not that desperate, Nathan. Jesus
Give me
Christ.
$20 and I might
am.
do it.
Yes.
I question my life choices every time I look into the mirror.
No.
What are you?
Well, that's because you're holding the action figure in front of your face.
Yeah, you're
No,
like, why
I'm
am I a
not.
giant ape?
Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you, of course, once again to Donick Cary for listening. I know it devolves into chaos towards the end of these shows, but we like it that way.
Do it.
We will be back in another week with more. I have plans, or do I?
Dun,
Wait,
dun,
I
dun.
thought it would. But thanks to everyone for listening and paying attention. Please, this particular version on the Facebook page will be deleted in a couple days as we put up the new version that's edited with credits and stuff. So don't spread this version or share this version. Share the new one when it comes up, because otherwise the old version will be devalued. Which Mike, the editor, is the one who puts up for us because he's awesome.
Yes,
Thank
they had all
you.
the lens flares.
Yes,
I do what I can.
he does take out all the lens flares.
And he edits me out entirely.
Yes.
Release
you
from Mike.
Nathan, because you look awful. I'm just kidding.
Well, Nathan,
Hey,
we
man.
want it to be good.
I am rocking this.
And remember, you gotta.
Bring me some drugs and we'll talk, Nathan.
Jesus.
And you
All,
really
all
gotta.
we need to do is get for one of the subscribers to subscribe $1,000. It seems.
And Mike has to really do up my blush.
Dude, I will literally take LSD if someone gives $1,000. I will.
It will devolve into madness.
It
I did-
absolutely would.
I didn't want to at least leave a positive message. Just fucking be kind to each other, please, because what you can stay out there on social media and such can have an effect on people, because the world just lost a very young and very brilliant professional Japanese wrestler who also happened to be a reality TV star who got like cyberbullied into bad stuff. So just
Yes.
please
Very tragic.
fucking be kind to each other.
Also, wear your
agree.
fucking masks.
Yeah.
Wear
I
your
just-
masks.
Wear your goddamn masks.
I saw a little bit about the wrestler, but I admit I'm never going to be a wrestling guy, Jordan. It's nothing against wrestling. I went down that road. I came back. I went down that road again. I came back and I finally went, this just doesn't appeal to me. That's fine.
I
have
just want
plenty
to
of
spread a
friends
good
who-
message.
You
You guys
don't
don't know,
you
Chris
probably
used to be a
don't give
wrestler.
like deep cut 80s horror the way I do. So there you go. We've all
I
got
still
our
love
own.
that.
It's fine.
Chris, what was your wrestler name?
What was I don't have one because I don't like wrestling. So
It's
You
a
went
secret.
down that hole. It's a secret.
no, I didn't go down the hole in the sense of wrestling, in the sense of people paying attention.
I'm just
Wrestling.
picturing
I'm
gambling.
not sure how you
He was Crusher Hogan,
You
and he had to
gotta
fight
throw this
Spider-Man.
fight, Chris.
That was his final fight. His fight against Spider-Man.
Trippy Terrence. I don't know what. I just,
Trippy Terrence.
Fuck did that come from?
hey, we're doing an acid show, and I've done that. I don't know. I'm
And he
gonna
will
end
do it again for $1,000. Everybody like and subscribe. Everybody go to my Venmo and help us raise $1,000 so Chris takes acid.
Yeah, there's a Venmo at Oneofus.net. There's a Oneofus.net. You don't need to go to Nathan.
My personal Venmo.
I'm just going to get rid of that and go, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with less inherent corruption. Thank you for watching.